Welcome back to Game Time inside our NBA TV studios in Atlanta, Georgia. Cold here, but some things heating up in the NBA, guys. So we got to get right to some news here. Carmelo Anthony has been rumored in a deal that would send him to the New Jersey Nets. And let's take a look at the players involved. I'm just going to be quiet and let everybody read it. There's a lot to get to on this page, isn't there? Chauncey Billups, along with Melo, would go to New Jersey. You see the other players involved. Rip Hamilton, also from Detroit. So you see the Nuggets, Pistons, and Nets all involved in this deal. Now, this is a potential. Please notice the word at the top of the page. Potential.
I don't know if you know this, Mark, but after looking at this page, there's also some land that's going to be traded hands.
I think a bridge.
For the first time in NBA history, yeah. They're trade plots of land in different states.
All right, joining us now to discuss is David Aldridge. And, D.A., appreciate you taking some time to kind of break this down for us. We reported earlier that you said you did confirm a deal is close. D.A., can you tell us now what the latest you know is?
Well, nothing's changed really. You know, I mean, it's still the Nets trying to get a commitment from Carmelo Anthony. You know, they have not gotten him or his representatives to say that he will sign a long-term deal to stay in New Jersey, and that's what they've been waiting for months. You know, this is you know, another potential deal that that Billy King and Masai Ujiri have worked out, but the same problems remain. Carmelo's got to commit to it. You know, I mean, it doesn't make any sense to make this deal, and New Jersey's not going to make this deal until they hear from Carmelo that he's going to stay there for at least 3 years. So that's what they're waiting to hear from. But all the parameters are pretty much in position there. I mean, there's no, you know, the Pistons aren't crazy about taking Johan Petro because he's got a couple of years left on his deal. The whole point of them getting in this deal is to save some money because they get Rip Hamilton's contract off their books. So they would like for New Jersey to find another place for Petro to land, but it's not a deal breaker. So this is basically coming down to what Carmelo wants, and we know that he wants to go to New York first and foremost, but again, the Knicks just do not have the assets that Denver wants in return.
David, Steve Smith, like you said, that last point is from all concerns, and what we're hearing is, like you said, Melo wants to go to New York. So if Melo doesn't agree to this deal, you think New Jersey or all these other teams will still pull off a deal without Carmelo's consent?
I think it's very difficult to see a scenario where a team wouldn't have some sort of commitment from Carmelo that he was going to stay. I mean, you know, Jersey's offering half their team basically. I mean, when it comes down to it, they're trading half of their team for a guy, and I don't think they would do that, and I know they wouldn't do that unless they knew that Carmelo was coming. Now, their owner, Mikhail Prokhorov, obviously feels like he can convince Carmelo that he should stay, and here are the reasons why, and here are the things that I will do, and so he's pushing very hard for this deal to get done. He's pushing, you know, Billy King, the team president, and trying to get this done because he feels like once he gets Carmelo in front of him, he'll be able to sell him on it. But that's easier said than done. You know, even if, you know, we all know that, you know, in this day and age where players have a lot of control over where they're going and what they want to do, you know that Carmelo wants to play with two contemporary star players, and you know, all due respect to Rip and Chauncey, they're a little older, I think, than what Carmelo will be looking for. So I don't think there's any assurance that he's on board either with the deal or with staying in Jersey, and that's kind of what everybody's waiting for, from what I've been told.
Well, D.A., you've covered the league for so long, and obviously so many different types of trades, whether they were small or they concern a superstar player like we have here with Carmelo Anthony. I wanted to ask you about the timing of things in that, you know, we're still a month away. Is there any reason why this trade would happen now as opposed to teams waiting until things might sweeten come February? Just, you've been around long enough to know the timing of these things. Would it be appropriate now?
Well, I don't think, you know, Bones, I don't think, obviously there's never a good time to trade a star player. I mean, you know, whether they do it now or a month from now, I think that the Nets have pretty much exhausted every scenario that they could come up with. I don't think they believe there is a better offer that's going to come that satisfies what Denver wants. You know, they've tried to enlist Utah, they've tried to enlist Charlotte, they've tried to enlist Minnesota, they've tried to enlist a lot of different teams over the last 3 months, and I think they feel like this is the best that they can do. You know, there is not going to be a better way. I mean Denver when I say that. I mean, I think Denver has looked at all different scenarios. And the one that they want, once they made the decision that they did not want to take any money back, they didn't want Andre Iguodala, they did not want Kirilenko or any of the other veterans that had been mentioned earlier. Once it came down to we just want young players and expiring contracts and draft picks, there just has not been anything else other than New Jersey. It's always come back to New Jersey because of Derek Favors, right. And the potential that Denver sees in Derek Favors. So, and the willingness for a team like New Jersey to trade Derek Favors, who was the third pick in the draft last year. You know, so it just kept coming back to New Jersey, and it kept coming back to the Nets, and I just don't think there's anything else out there that is going to change. I mean, I think they've looked at everything, and I think they feel like from the standpoint of their team, and I was at that game. I covered their game in Sacramento. That team, they look like a team that mentally was just finished. This constant kind of talk about Carmelo and players just look like they're just done with it. They just have to, for the sake of their team, resolve this one way or another and move forward.
Well, let me ask you this, D.A., before we wrap this thing up. You mentioned that obviously it hinges on Carmelo Anthony saying he would stay in Brooklyn, which is ultimately where the Nets are going to wind up. Is there anybody else that could ruin this deal or hurt this deal? A lot of talk as we read about it that Chauncey Billups might not want to be in New Jersey. Could another player and their dissatisfaction mean that this doesn't get done?
Well, I mean, I think his agent Andy Miller has stated that he wouldn't be thrilled about going to New Jersey, but he didn't say that he would retire on the spot, which is, I mean, really the only thing that could mess this deal up is if he'd said something like that. So I think it's clear that, and I think New Jersey knows that, Chauncey would not want to be there long term, and then maybe they reroute him at some point for something else or someone else. There are other point guards that are in play and that might be available, whether it's Andre Miller in Portland or Luke Ridnour in Minnesota. There's other players. I'm not saying they're great players or on the caliber, of a Chauncey Billups. I think Andre Miller is pretty close, but so I think that they could do other things. And keep in mind, I think the other shoe that hasn't dropped here is Chris Paul. I mean, I think Chris Paul's situation in New Orleans still bears watching, and obviously Carmelo wants to play with him. And so if there was some scenario under which they might be able to get Chris Paul at some later date, it wouldn't be in this trade. I think that's another shoe potentially that could drop in this. So even if this deal gets done, I don't think New Jersey would be finished in terms of reshaping its roster.
D.A., really appreciate you spending some time and helping us break this thing down. Sure we'll be talking again real soon.
Absolutely, guys. My pleasure.